Way to save the season to throw. Fire down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego. Tomlinson off the left side. Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. Think they have to now. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
Welcome to week 2 of the TLR Roundtable. Jamie's here, Craig's here, I'm here. We're all here to take your questions. We already collected a bunch of them from Discord, got a bunch from Twitter. We're going to be featuring our bad tweets. And just a side note here, I've gotten multiple messages now, which is 2, saying that we need to feature Dan Fouts and Allworth in our video. So I don't know if we do another cut of that, but it seems like we're missing 2 important Chargers legends. Do I need to include those, or you think we're good here?
I mean, I guess as many happy Charger memories as we can get in one collection. Yeah, all right.
Oh. So maybe some week, maybe on April 1st, I could do a cut of all the terrible things that happened in Chargers history.
For stay away from that.
We live that every week. Do we really need
it
to cut up? I don't think so.
Well, April, that'd be like draft season. So, anyway, yeah. Well, anyway, that's just a side note. I think people, 2 people want to see that. I wasn't alive, so I don't really have much tied to them, but I do with the guys that were in the video.
Yeah, Fouts was right at the beginning of my Chargers fandom, I think, and Allworth was obviously long before me. So
yeah, right there.
Oh, that's good.
No ties there.
All right, so you guys know the drill. We're going to take your questions. If you guys have questions in the chat, drop them in, and we'll ask them if they're any good. But we got a lot going here, so let's go ahead and start from Discord, which is going to be Craig here. And I'll pull up your first one, which for some reason I don't have. Here we go. Got it now.
All right. Sweet. So VJ Palmieri, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. What do you think the motive is for Staley calling K9's performance Sunday a winning performance? I refuse to believe he actually means that. I was a Staley stan, but this might be the final straw for me. I feel that. What do you think about it? What do you think, Garrett?
Well, he's lying, but also it feels pretty simple in that, right now, Kenneth Murray's an important part of the defense. He's the linebacker next to Kendricks. He's especially important because Dion Henley's out. Really, one game in, there's no benefit to trashing your own players, especially a starter on your defense. It just feels like Staley's kind of just going above and beyond to protect his players. And it feels like, and this is just a personal feeling, that like Kenneth Murray isn't the type of guy that gets motivated by getting like dragged in the media. So, he's just showing the media and everybody else that he believes in Murray, whether he believes it or not, which he doesn't. Murray's got to play with as much confidence as he can right now because they're pretty thin at that position. So for me, it just feels like Staley's just kind of helping with his confidence a little bit. Plus, behind closed doors during that film session this week, you knew Kenneth Murray was hearing from those coaches. So why pile on in the press? I just feel like it's just Staley kind of protecting his players.
Fair. What are your thoughts, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I doubt he seriously believes that. And there is enough ambiguity or gray area in, quote, winning performance after you lost a game giving up 600 yards that you can read that however you want. I just think Murray's been beat up ad nauseum by us, by media members, by everybody, fans. And sometimes you just got to protect your guys. You just got to let them know that you're looking out for them. And I think this is part of the reason why, no matter what some people might say, the players still believe in Staley to some degree, because he does look out for his guys. He says he believes in them. He protects them. He looks out for them. So I think that's all this is. This is just coach speak. He's just defending his guy because he doesn't have another option right now.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like this is sort of kind of towing the company line just a smidge. I mean, the organization not only spent a first round pick on Murray, but they also traded up for him during the Lynn regime. Murray, in my eyes, is kind of like the bad step kid that you take on along with the new marriage. So it's like you accepted him the day you said I do to the job.
Yes.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
That is an incredible
He's
analogy.
along for the ride now.
Take
Take the kid out, get him some ice cream, pat him on the head, and be happy you got a smoking hot wife.
Who is what, Herbert in this situation?
Pretty much.
Okay. All right. Number 2.
All right. So Keith, 88. Moore seems to have a track record of leaning into something different each week in the offensive game plan. What would that be this week against the Titans? What you got, Jamie?
Full disclosure, I haven't watched the Titans game yet, but I know they struggled mightily in coverage last week. They had a lot of problems with giving up big plays. I would not be surprised if after running the ball as well as they did last week, we see more play action, maybe some double moves outside, and try to push the ball down the field. Amani Hooker is banged up and seems like he's probably trending towards not playing. Christian Fulton is banged up and practiced in a limited way today, but we don't know if he's going to play. Their secondary is in a pretty bad way if those two guys don't play. So I would expect them to open things up a little bit, try to get some chunk plays in the middle of the field, and look for some double moves and some play action to set up big plays on the perimeter.
What say you, Garrett?
Yeah. So I ended up watching this game, and they're going to do a lot more work downfield in the passing game. The Saints had 4 receivers have a completion over 25 yards on Sunday. They were giving up a lot of splash plays. So it just feels like there's going to be a lot of work downfield this week, especially more than last week.
Yep, for sure. Right there with Jamie, I think they're going to use kind of the running game from last week as a catalyst to set up the passing game this week, because the Titans have a pretty stout front with Jeffrey Simmons leading the way there. And that secondary is Swiss cheese in Tennessee. Even if all their guys were healthy, it's still not one of the better ones in the league. So Moore being one of those OCs I see is, kind of progressively building that playbook out and allowing it to organically grow, is going to use what he did on the ground last week and hopefully, bait Tennessee into, kind of crowding the box a bit to protect against the run. It'll open up some things down the field and in the middle for the wideouts.
All right. In the Discord, our third question.
J-Man the Jason, I think.
Yep.
When do you think we see Herbert's breakout game this season? The one where he goes into God mode and throws for 400 and 3 to 4 TDs. I feel like with the hype surrounding Kellen Moore's arrival, MVP talk, etc., that one of these games, if not more, should be on tap. What you think, Jamie?
I think there's a good chance it could happen this week with all the injuries in the secondary for the Titans, with the running game being what it was last week. I think it really opens the door for, like I said, a lot of play action and some big plays downfield, some chunk plays to help expedite quicker scores. So 400 yards. I don't know if it'll be 400 yards, but I could see Herbert easily topping 300 yards this week, having a minimum of 3 scores, and the Chargers just racking up one explosive play in the passing game after another.
Yeah, I mean, they have to bounce back fast. They don't want to go 0-2 in the season. And with that loss on Sunday, they were going to be pretty motivated. And Tennessee gave up over 300 yards to Derek Carr. Could be this week. I could see Herbert getting 4, especially with Eckler banged up. I know they're going to try to depend on the run game, but with that run defense, they're going to have to air it out a lot this Sunday.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. My best guess is this week, but I've also got my eyes on the following week against the Vikings. Their secondary doesn't scare me a ton. They've got some pass rush there. just a little, but I think one of the next 2 weeks is when we see it. It'll most likely be against the Titans, though.
All right, Craig, you can start us off here.
Sweet. Kellen Moore, 2024. Two-parter. What have you seen from Staley over the last 2 years that would give you confidence that he's the right guy to be coaching this team? We've obviously seen flashes of amazing play on the defensive, I'm guessing means on the defensive side of the ball. But when thinking about his game plans, in-game adjustments, etc., do you think he's hit his ceiling as a coach, or do you think he's capable of elevating the team to another level? Okay. So as far as what we've seen over the last 2 years, it's kind of been in spurts, right? So last year was heading towards the end of the season down the stretch, which we've all kind of discussed, could be attributed to the fact that they played less than stellar competition towards the end of the season. And I don't know, man, just outside of the fact that when you hear him talk football, he clearly has a very good understanding of it. It's just not always being applied on the field. And we also saw that if he's willing to simplify the defense, that they may be able to perform, at a very high level potentially, but at least above average. As far as him hitting his ceiling as a defensive play caller, when we're talking like in-game adjustments and stuff like that, I don't know. I don't know that he's all that great at that. I will say, though, that if he's willing to at least go into a game with a solid enough game plan to sustain and keep, teams at, I guess, nominal points and let the offense kind of do their thing, all he has to do is play second fiddle to the offense. So I'm not looking for him to per se have an elite defense. I just think that if he can just kind of improve to average, then I'd be just fine with that as long as the offense is performing at a high enough level. What do you think, Garrett?
I think I agree with you, and I don't really have much to add other than I think what could give you confidence if you're looking on the bright side as a Stanley or a Staley stan, is Staley won 5 of the last 7 games last year. They went on a run. That loss at the end of the year was a game where they had already locked up the playoffs. So they had already earned a playoff spot before the season even ended. So it was pretty impressive in that regard, the run they went on at the end of the year. And then for me, I can't stop thinking about the way he had Tua in hell last time they played. I mean, his game plan against the Dolphins, their first matchup last year, was a masterpiece and probably his best game to date as far as a head coach. So if you were looking at things to be confident in, you could say, hey, Staley went on a run towards the end of the year. If you look at the schedule, those teams ended up not being very good at the end of the year, but they went on a run and they made the playoffs. They were close the year before. So I think if you wanted to have some kind of confidence, I think you could kind of pin those two things on him.
What do you say, Jamie?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of in a weird spot with Staley because I want to believe, but when you see things like we saw on Sunday, it's really hard to have too much confidence in him moving forward. Everything went wrong on the defensive side of the ball. Literally everything at all 3 levels. It was just bad all the way around, and they looked unprepared. And there have been a lot of games in the last few years where they seem completely unprepared, which is kind of concerning. Do I have confidence? I would say right now I probably don't. Can my mind be changed if things change? It's only 1 game, but can my mind be changed moving forward? Sure. If they get really hot and they go on a run, yeah, my mind could be changed. I just think too many inconsistencies on the defensive side of the ball right now. Too much of the team just not being prepared, not being ready to play, which is a big problem. If I'm looking on the bright side, I would say, Garrett mentioned having Tua in hell in that first game last year. I would say we also saw some brilliant things in the first half of the playoff game against the Jaguars.
Oh, yeah.
And some of those things that happened in the second half that cost them the game were not necessarily game plan related, in my opinion. It was just injuries and things falling apart and Lombardi not being able to get out of his own way and keep the offense moving in a lot of ways. So is he capable of a special game plan and putting opposing quarterbacks or opposing offenses in hell? Sure. We've seen it. It just hasn't been consistent enough. And is he capable of having them be more than a 10 or 11 win team and one and done in the playoffs? I would say time will tell. It's not really an answer, but it is what it is, right? We don't know. Missed the playoffs the first year, one and done last year. Is he going to win the division? I would say probably not. So he's got a lot of questions left to be answered.
All right. Last one here, Craig.
Yeah. JC Verrett. I kind of like that name, the back half of it, but was the decision to spread the field horizontally instead of vertically a result of playing against a Fangio scheme defense? How does the passing identity need to grow against the Titans? What you got, Garrett?
Well, it felt like they wanted to stretch them horizontally, like they wanted the Dolphins to defend sideline to sideline and make the defenders like tackle in space, which I'm okay with. I'm not against that game plan as long as they set up some shots as well. We got one with Keenan early, which felt like a great mix and balance early on. And, but it felt like the run game was so effective that they kind of just went away from it all. And so, I think it'll change this week because I don't think they're going to be able to lean on the run as much against the Titans run D. So, I mean, I think it's going to grow vertically. Horizontal was interesting for a little bit because I thought it set up a couple things early on in that game. But, I think just because of the way the flow of that game and how effective the run game was, I don't blame them for not going away from it and kind of just leaning on it and just running it down their throats, which they ended up doing. But I think we're going to see a whole different game plan this week because this we've mentioned it multiple times now. Titans secondary's banged up and it's Swiss cheese, which is what I think Craig said right now. So we're gonna see a much more developed kind of passing game and offensive game plan this week, I think.
Yeah, I kind of look at that horizontal game plan a little differently after thinking about it for a few days. And for me, and this has been going on really since Staley got here, is I feel like they are coaching the offense in the same fashion that they hope opposing offenses are coached against their defense, which is, I feel like Staley is coaching these guys. He wants the offense to quote unquote take what's being given, but really they're kind of being spooked or bullied into being horizontal and being gimmicky because they don't think they can access the intermediate and deep part of the field with two deep safeties. So the running game worked. The running game was amazing on Sunday, and that carried them through the majority of that game. But to continue to have Herbert throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage or within 2 yards of the line, 2 yards of either side of the line of scrimmage is a problem. And I think they need to figure out ways to access some of those holes in that Fangio scheme, find the boundaries, find the intermediate middle to get chunk plays. And they need to change the way they're looking at how they're coaching Herbert to handle those defenses. It just seems like they're spooked by them. And it's been going on for 3 years now. So hopefully that starts to change. I do think we'll see more vertical passing this week, like I've said already a couple times. I just think they're going to have to. They're not going to be able to run the ball as effectively, I don't think, against the Titans, and I think they're going to have to create some explosive plays in the passing game. So that's how I would expect it to grow. Hopefully some of those horizontal passes start leading to double moves, some, pump fakes, some play action, things like that to set up bigger plays down the field. Because I just don't think what they did last week suited Herbert. And I feel like they kind of had their hand forced and they were spooked into doing that by that too high safety scheme.
The thing that kind of throws me off about that is, number one, he practices against it every day. Well, I mean, in the off season. So I feel like he should be a little bit better prepared to go against it. Particularly just speaking of last week's matchup against the Dolphins. He understands that scheme, or at this point, he should understand it through and through. Although Vic, being the architect of it, probably has a few wrinkles that maybe could throw him off a bit. But I would assume that seeing that as frequently as he does, more could maybe encourage him to take those shots. We do know that that too high scheme, that too high shell is meant to keep a top on the defense. So going vertically isn't necessarily the best option unless you can utilize the run to kind of make those safeties cheat up a bit more so you can get over the top of them, but at least attack the seams. And I don't feel like they did a ton of that. I didn't get a chance to rewatch the full game back on the all 22, but it just feels like he should be a little bit better prepared for it. As far as the identity, or looking at it this way, running those horizontal plays, I didn't hate it. I just felt like the wrong people were doing it. Like Mike Williams catching screen passes behind the line of scrimmage to me never feels like a good idea. But apparently it's something that's a part of the offense that they either need to scrap altogether or replace that with Quentin Johnston. I'm perfectly fine with Keenan doing it because Keenan may not be the fastest guy in the world, but what he does do is make guys miss in the open field. He has a little bit of wiggle to make that happen. Not super explosive. He's not going to get you very much after the fact because he's not really going to outrun anyone. But where are those plays to Quentin Johnston and Darius Davis? Those are the two guys that I would like to see have the ball in their hands on plays like that. Even Josh Palmer, but definitely not Mike Williams. It just feels like the wrong guys were being targeted for those plays, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's hard to ask Mike to be effective catching the ball behind the line of scrimmage with his feet stopped and then expect him to make people miss, which he's not that good at to begin with, and make plays in space. It's just not his strength.
No real acceleration to speak of.
All right, Jamie, we got the tweets up for you.
All right. So first tweet is from @ChinOder12. I think I read that right. If we would have won or not lost, do you think fans and analysts would have been so critical of Staley's defensive play calling? What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, I still do, because let's say Herbert marches the Chargers down the field on that last drive and puts them in range for Dicker to kick the game-winning field goal. At some point, the narrative probably shifts to like Herbert saved the team from the poorest defensive effort. And so like essentially he guarded them against the shortcomings of Staley. The pitchforks for Staley kind of seem to be out regardless, and it's warranted. But I don't think there would have been a way to escape allowing 36 points to the Dolphins, particularly to Tua Tagovailoa. And I understand that offense being what it was, and the fact that it is as fast as it is played a huge part of that, and the wrinkles that they added in by putting guys in motion so they couldn't get free. So they got free releases, and you were essentially chasing the fastest guys in the league around all day. But even with a win, there would have been no escaping that. It would have essentially been that Herbert stepped up, made the plays to get the team in a situation to win the game, and they still would have left Staley holding the bag, so to speak.
I mean, people were tweeting out like in the third quarter how bad this defense was. I mean, everybody saw it. I don't think a win would have masked that at all. The fact that they had lost kind of exacerbates the issues, but the issues were still there. So I think people would have still been critical. I mean, I know I would have.
Yeah, and I think, it's fair to criticize Staley. Some of the play calling was not good. There's a 4th and 7 play where they got the ball to Smythe in space, and they blew a coverage. Sante Samuel Jr. blew a coverage that everybody's talking about, and there was bad execution, but they're running quarters on 4th and 7. Why are you protecting the deep part of the field instead of protecting the middle of the field on 4th and 7? So there's questions about some of the play calling. I think there's also a lot of execution questions. It seems like we're right back to where we are at the start of every season, where things are too complicated. Guys aren't sure what their responsibilities are. Guys are missing jams at the line of scrimmage, which puts you in a bad spot. Guys are getting turned around. I mean, there's several plays where J.C. Jackson is just getting spun around like a top and winds up chasing somebody who gets 10 yards of separation on him. As a group, they just didn't play well. The execution wasn't there. You can call it rust. You could say the game plan was too complicated. You can say they're asking too much of people. But at the end of the day, the game plan wasn't very good, and the execution of said game plan was even worse. So there are a lot of issues there. But I don't think a win changes that. If you're giving up 30-plus points and you're in a position to lose a game in which you score 34 points at home, there's going to be criticism, and there should be.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is there's only one new person on this defense. which is Eric Kendricks. There's supposed to be some kind of continuity, and they're supposed to be pretty comfortable with each other by now. But yeah, execution wasn't good. The adjustments after they were getting beat wasn't good. So yeah, I don't think anybody would have given Staley a pass, even if they would have won this game.
So year 3, man, the excuses are pretty much done.
Yep. All right, next one.
This is from Girl Dad 252. Could Bosa be a trade candidate if this team is not competitive by the deadline? Garrett, what do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think Bosa had. Well, first of all, he's coming off an injury. He's already banged up to start the year. So if we're talking trade deadline, I think Mike Williams is probably more likely to be traded than Joey Bosa would be. They restructured his deal. They pushed the money to 2024. He'd be owed like $32 million next year if they keep him. And there's an out in his contract. So they could save $20 million by trading Mike Williams, get a pick in return, and give it to a team that could use an upgrade, because they're most likely, if not definitely, moving on from Khalil Mack next season. So trading Joey Bosa leaves you very, very thin at edge rusher. If you trade Joey Bosa, you've got Thule, Rumpf, and then a bunch of guys. If you trade Mike Will, you're basically just opening up that spot for the guy you drafted in the first round, Quentin Johnston, so that he can have a bigger role. So to me, that makes more sense short-term and long-term. So I think Bosa could be a candidate. I think Mike Williams is probably the better candidate to trade at the deadline if things go absolutely backwards by the trade deadline.
Craig?
Yeah, good point there. I hadn't actually thought about it that way, Garrett. But where Bosa is concerned, I doubt it for 2 reasons. Number one, that would be very uncharger-like because Joey's one of their guys, so it wouldn't align with their ways historically. And secondly, at this point, Joey's pretty much earned the tag as injury-prone. It's hard to see another organization sending any substantial draft capital their way to get him, or player capital for that matter. Joey's just kind of one of those guys that seems like he's going to be a Charger until that contract expires. And unless he just does something, I mean, he's done some things at this point that would make you possibly consider it. I don't think the return is going to be all that great, even if they were to consider it. So I don't think Joey's going anywhere. If he does, I would actually be pretty shocked.
Yeah, I don't think he's a trade candidate. And I think there are 3 reasons why he isn't a trade candidate. 1, he's really expensive. 2, he's extremely injury prone. Actually, I've got 4 reasons. 3, he's penalty prone. He's basically a target for officials. And 4, he showed some erratic behavior in the offseason. And I don't know what kind of appeal he's going to have to teams at his price with some of the questions / baggage that come with him. He missed almost all of last year. Like Garrett said, he's already banged up again. His performance when he is on the field seems to be in decline. He just seems like he's hitting a wall in a lot of ways, mentally, physically, the whole deal. And I think that contract right now, unless things turn for the better, is kind of looking like an albatross, and they're going to get stuck with it unless they decide to cut him.
Yeah, so none of us believe he's actually a trade candidate. What do you think you could get for him? What do you think his price is at this moment? Do you think he would get a second like Khalil Mack? It feels like kind of the same type situation. Khalil Mack had injury issues. He was older, had a hefty contract. Does that make sense, or you guys don't think he'll even get that?
I don't know. I don't think he gets second. I think you're looking at a day 3 pick somewhere.
I was going to say, yeah, third
damn.
at earliest, man. Even with Khalil, I know that he had been experiencing injuries. I mean, outside of the one that put him out for, the better part of that year in Chicago, I think he was relatively consistent. I don't remember what the season prior to that looked like for him. It just feels like Joey's almost always injured, though. And Khalil has the excuse, quote unquote, of getting older. Joey just seems to be getting broken down, not even yearly. Just seems like he can't get through a handful or so of games without getting nicked up somehow, some way, and having to miss multiple. So I would argue that he may be more injury prone than even Khalil I mean, if you want to call Khalil injury prone at this point, it probably has more so to do with age. But yeah, I don't think you get anything more than day 3 for him.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about hamstring injuries, you're talking about back injuries, you're talking about groin injuries. Those core injuries start to get really scary as you get into your 30s. And he continues to have them over and over and over again. I don't know what kind of value he'd have. You'd probably have to take a pretty hefty discount. And I don't even know if his contract allows for him to be traded. Like, is there any kind of a hit for trading him? Dead money hit? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. You can take this one, Jamie.
This is from Starnes Jarrett 15. Is it an overreaction to say our wide receiver room is just not good? Look to be zero separation all day Sunday. Craig, what do you think?
I think it's an overreaction. The top 3 guys just aren't particularly fast, so they have to either lean on like precision route running, a la Keenan and Palmer, or physicality, Mike Williams. The issue here is getting your newer draft picks more involved. Those are your explosive guys who, if you're using more vertically, can probably help with the not as fast guys getting open in the intermediate and shorter parts of the field. So I don't think that the wide receiving core in general is like overrated at all or not very good. I just think they're not being utilized properly to this point based off of like the capital that they've invested in it here recently. And I think you'll see that change as the weeks progress. I don't think we should just really jump out of the window and look at the first game being against the type of defense that it was against and the fact that those 2 guys weren't necessarily utilized, I feel, to their best abilities. So let's just give it a few weeks to see how things develop. But I would say, yeah, it's probably an overreaction to say that they're not very good.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely an overreaction.
I think some of those guys are declining a little bit, and I think it's fair not to necessarily say they're not good, but maybe they're not as good as some Chargers fans think they are, and maybe they're more kind of middle of the pack.
That'll always be the case, though, with any player.
Always. But I think there's a belief in, among Chargers fans and even in some media circles that this is like a top 5 to 10 receiving group, and I just don't think it is. I think they're more in that, like, I don't know, 12 to 17 range, somewhere in there, maybe lower. They just don't. Keenan makes people miss, but Mike and Palmer don't really make people miss. They don't really have that field stretching element right now with QJ working his way up and Davis still learning to play the position. They're not overly explosive. Keenan can get himself open. Mike, not so much. I think they're fine. They'll be productive, but I don't think they're nearly as explosive or special as most people think they are.
All right. Here you go, Jamie. You can read this and answer it.
From at the jacket 26, is Kenneth Murray's high snap count somewhat relevant to Henley being injured? Henley being injured. I think Murray was going to play a lot of snaps on Sunday, no matter what. I think he's going to play a lot of snaps for the next several weeks, even when Henley comes back healthy. I think he's going to be on the field in base defense. I think they're going to try to sprinkle Henley in sub packages early to get his feet wet. And the soonest we'll see Henley start to really eat into Murray's snap count is probably like week 8 or later. I think they want to give Murray every opportunity to succeed. And there's some areas that they're probably working on with Henley, and they're going to rely on Henley in coverage and maybe as a blitzer in sub packages, and still rely on Murray on first and second down as the quote unquote run stopper, even though that's not really what he does. Not really sure what he does, but that's definitely not what he does.
No, but I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, I think it's not a surprise at all because they're going to slowly bring Henley on. That's kind of been the plan, and that's what we said about halfway through the year, we might see like a 50-50 split where their snaps are a lot closer. And then, maybe towards the end of the year, they start taking over some of Kenneth Murray's snaps. But, I thought for the first 2 to 3 months, we'd see at least 2 months, we'd see Kenneth Murray just dominate those snaps next to Kendricks. So no, that's not a surprise to me.
Yeah, I don't know that he's necessarily seeing a ton of snaps either because of Henley being injured. I don't think that was a plan from the beginning. As the guys I've already mentioned, they're probably working Henley into more of a role. I would even venture to say that, do we even know that Henley's like where he actually stands on the depth chart to this point? Because I guess we're just kind of overlooking whether or not he gets snaps over Eamon Ogbongbemiga or Nick Niemann. I don't know that we can just assume he's the third linebacker in that rotation. Maybe potentially.
I think we can.
Yeah, well, in the event that he's still learning and they
Yeah.
can mix him in, in certain coverages, and if they want to utilize him as a blitzer, I could see that and understand that. But let's say, for instance, if all the guys are healthy and then something were to happen to Murray, are we thinking they would just slot Henley in as his replacement?
I think they see Neiman and Amon as strictly special teamers. I think they want to keep them off the field as much as possible. And so I would think Henley jumps both of them. Sorry, go ahead.
I think they definitely see Amon as a special teamer only. I would not be surprised with some of his athletic traits if they think they have something more, at least a little bit more in Neiman. I don't know how much he'll play, but I don't know. I have a feeling they might think that they have something at least in coverage with Neiman, and they might try to give him a run. But we could be looking at a defense without Kendricks and Murray as soon as next year.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to develop whoever they can develop to be ready for next year, so they don't have to spend a first-round pick on a middle linebacker.
Again. Okay. Last one here, Jamie.
This is from @Flounder_MA. Didn't get to watch the game, but since Tua was getting the ball out so fast, did the Chargers try any 3-man rushes, dropping 8 into coverage? Craig?
Actually might have to lean on you guys a bit for this because I didn't get to watch the full replay, but from what I recall just from the live watch, I don't remember very many 3-man pressures with 8 in coverage. Of course, I guess the question here is that, dropping guys, or the inference here is dropping more guys underneath would have helped to better defend those quick throws, since they weren't able to get home with 4 based off the fact that, they were getting the ball out relatively quickly. So I can't really speak to the fact of whether they did it more than a couple times or not. I just don't feel like I saw it at all.
Yeah, you didn't see a lot of it because on the rewatch there wasn't much of it. Go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say, I can remember off the top of my head maybe 2 or 3 times in like 3rd and long type situations where they dropped more and only rushed 3, but I think it was mostly 4-man rushes.
Yeah. I just on the rewatch, so I didn't look for this in particular, but I could probably count on my hand how many times they did it. So yeah, it wasn't all that much.
And when you're talking like 3rd and long, it makes a little more sense to do, because they're not necessarily going to be looking for the quick shot. They're probably waiting for something to develop a little bit further down the field behind the sticks. Although, they have the speed to get something kind of in that shorter portion of the field and allow guys to run to potentially make it. So, I just don't remember seeing anything and say like an obvious passing situation that was under like 7 yards or anything like that.
All right. So let's go ahead and do our bad tweets.
Yes.
This is where we are going to every week. Feel free to tweet us, or if you're in the Discord, if you're not, make sure you're in the Discord. And if you are in the Discord, make sure to send us all the bad hot takes from the week. We're going to present them here on the show. And we'll start with a Titans fan talking about the game this week and losing to the Chargers. They say, and for anonymity, we took off the name: Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Kenneth Murray, Samuel Jr., Their defense has legit stars. No excuses for the Chargers defense doing really, really good. Fellas, what name isn't like the others?
I think you could argue there are two names in there that aren't like the others,
Well, true.
right?
Yeah. One's
As things currently
closer.
stand.
Yeah.
one definitely stands out, but there's another one that's a little questionable to be mentioned in that group for sure.
My question is, has he watched any Chargers games?
Legit stars, not just like stars, but legit. Like he knows for sure those four are the stars of the Chargers defense.
This is someone who hasn't actually delved into Chargers tape. He's probably just looked at box scores, noticed that Kenneth Murray was a first-round draft pick, and assumes that, you know, things are going to line up based on name recognition when he couldn't be further from the truth.
Probably plays a lot of Madden, is my guess.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Is Murray scored high in Madden? Is he graded high? I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yes.
So I'm unfortunately, fellas, Madden was a huge part of my upbringing. So I buy the game every year, even though it sucks, and I play it for about 2 weeks, and then I don't touch it again until the next year's game. I don't know, but I believe Kenneth Murray's rating, his overall rating, is like a 74.
Yeah. Well, that seems high.
That seems really high.
Yeah. This feels like this is from Kenneth Murray's like dad, where he's like tries to just sneak in Kenneth Murray in the middle there, like he sandwiched him in between Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Kenneth Murray.
Nobody's going to notice.
Their defense.
You know? It's kind of like Tillery's dad attacking Chargers fans last year,
Exactly.
talking about how he was going to break out. It's that same vibe, right?
That's how I read it too, because it's like Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Kenneth Murray, Samuel Jr. The defense has legit. Just so you like might miss it, you're like, what was that third one? That's what it feels like. Yeah, just kind of sneak it in there. All right, I got 4 today, by the way. So usually we do about 3, but I got 4 because one snuck in at the buzzer. All right, I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback on this, but a Derwin James trade needs to happen this season. This happened after the game. They're already advocating for the best defender to be traded off the Chargers already.
Okay.
And then what? I'm just wondering is that the full state? That's it? That was the statement?
That's it. That's the tweet. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Just looking for potentially a solve here. What is that actually?
Step 1, trade Derwin James.
Step 2, haven't made it that far yet.
There was no 2, 3, 4. That was it. Just trade him. Yeah, but for what? And what are you going to do then? I mean, he is the captain
Play
of the
JT
defense.
Woods more? Play a little High Gilman more?
JT did okay.
I'm
not saying that in defense. Just,
Yeah.
I'm mostly being a smartass, but yeah, I can't even fathom the depths of the stupidity on this suggestion. I mean, if you wanted to say Derwin James should never play high safety, too high or single high safety again, deep safety, I would agree with that. If you wanted to say, let's stop asking Derwin James to do 10 different things at once in the defense, I would agree with that. But if you're going to sit here and tell me they should trade Derwin James this season, I'm just going to smack you upside the head because you're a fucking idiot.
Just get rid of
Jamie. I'm usually the one that opts to go with violence, man.
Yeah, I know. This really got to him.
Yeah.
Well, it's stupid. So yeah, the fact that you're just like after 1 week, the season's over, trade their best player. Like what how did you get there? It feels like such a huge leap from they lost the first game of the season to now trade their best player on defense.
Man, Chargers fandom does strange things to people.
Did this come from the same guy who said last week the season was over if they lost to the Dolphins?
No. Same. Different person. Yep. Yeah, totally different person. All right, number 3, and Jamie, this one comes courtesy of you, and I made sure to block out who they added after this, but it says at Chargers, show me Chargers game field that ends in a river sack. It doesn't exist. Let's give Herbert the keys. He can handle the bright lights and at least lose on his terms. It seems soft. And then tags 4 different accounts afterwards. One of which obviously is Jamie at Lightning Round,
This tweet,
at Lightning_round.
I really had to restrain myself from responding to this tweet because this is just dumb. Like,
Oh, and this might be a good plug. Send us your dumb tweets because then we can get it directly and we can just put them on the show.
Makes life easier for us.
Yep. Don't have to search so hard.
I don't even know where to begin with this. Aside from the fact that Rivers wasn't getting sacked to end games because he was throwing picks to end games.
That's
So-
a whole different. Yeah.
He's ending the games on his terms by turning the ball over in the final 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's switch to that, please. No, I mean, look, I'm being sarcastic. I love Rivers. Everybody knows I love Rivers, but this is just stupid. Are we really blaming the 2 sacks on Herbert when the entire line caved in at the end of the game on those last 2 plays? I mean, did Herbert have his best game? No, he didn't have his best game. But they scored 34 points and they lost the game.
Yeah.
And he got sacked at the end because I don't know if anybody saw this, but Fangio said he found a weakness in Moore's blocking schemes where he can overload one side and always get a free rush with the quarterback. It's something that he noticed when Fangio was in Denver and Moore was in Dallas, and he saved it for the end of the game and he brought it back at the end of the game and it won the game for him. So I don't even know what to say about this other than just stop. This is just silly.
Yeah. I also want to point out that they started it off with at Chargers, then they go show me, and then at Chargers again. Like they're so mad they're going to at Chargers twice. Like it's going to notify them twice. Like you only need one of them. But they were so pissed. They're like at Chargers. And there's no truth to that the game ends in a sack or that Rivers has never ended a game in a sack in his career. That can't be true.
I'm sure it isn't.
That's an easy Google search, but I can just almost guarantee it.
No, man.
Didn't Rivers go ahead? Sorry.
No,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I was wondering if you were doing a search right now. The wild part about that is just kind of like in general, especially on the internet, when you have a narrative, the truth gets thrown to the wind. No one really cares. Like just say the most salacious crap you can and evoke some responses, and then you've won the day apparently, because this is super revisionist. And listen, I get it. Everybody's pissed off about that loss, but the fact that you're going on there adding the Chargers as if if they see it, I'll say it again. Then what? What happens? Are we thinking they're going to take a recommendation from you by saying these things and by tagging them twice? Does that show them that you're really serious about it? Just
he means business.
Yeah.
Pounding. So he's pounding the table. He should have just sent this in all caps. It would have probably had a better effect.
And a lot more emojis. A lot more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Last one here. And this one came like literally this morning. And these are the worst type of Charger fans. I'll just start off with that. If you're really unhappy with the Chargers ownership, coaching, players, or a game day entertainment shit, even Thunder Alley, then maybe you should just walk away from being a Chargers fan. It's really that simple. There's nobody worse than Charger fan gatekeepers. They are the absolute worst human beings on Twitter. And
I don't know. Rec sports parents are.
Oh, okay.
Right
all
up
right.
there.
Fine. But this is wild that you can't just have. Go ahead. All right.
No, I was gonna say this is a close second. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. This is a close second to the rec parents. But I was saying on Twitter, but the people that tell you how you should be, that you can't be critical, that you should only be happy, you have to be positive no matter what. I mean, that stuff's all fake. Like if the Chargers are bad, everybody has a right to say they're bad. If they're good, everybody has a right to say they're good. The fact that anybody has to police anybody about their fandom and just be like, if you don't support the team, go away, that makes no sense. This is the worst tweet of the week, I think.
Basically just bend over and take it no matter what.
Yeah. You get pissed because you care. That's the thing. Like, if you're a fan of the team, you're going to have an emotional reaction to whether things go well or not. You're not going to be stoic throughout it all. You're not just going to ignore the bad and just support the good I don't know very many people that walk through life like that. You kind of have to acknowledge the entire spectrum. The issue here is that when you have people policing, how you feel and how you express your feelings, then what it does is it draws a huge target on you. So you better be on the up and up all the time, because people don't forget and screenshots are a thing. So make sure you keep the same energy every week, because you're going to make yourself very famous, and not in a positive way.
The internet lives forever.
Yep.
Nobody will ever let you forget.
No. And I really, really hate this type of tweets. Just like let people, and the people that are like overly positive all the time are just so phony that I don't even like following those people, because it's like if they're bad, you're allowed to say they're bad. You don't have to always spin it positive and just be like, well, if you don't like the Chargers, then walk away. Well, that's kind of a big leap. We're allowed to have our own opinions and be worked up because we're passionate about the team, just like anybody else. So
I would argue that if you don't get pissed off, that you may not actually be a real fan of the team. Just think about things that you love in life. Like, can you just walk away from them that easily when they piss you off? I mean, again, you have an emotional reaction because you care a lot.
Yeah.
Craig just used real fan on our show. I don't know that we've ever used that phrase before on our show.
No, we have not. We have not.
Everybody's entitled to fan however they want to fan. Whether you're going to be overly positive, overly negative, be somewhere in between. Look, if I'm going to spend 3.5 hours watching a game on Sunday and then watch it again 2 or 3 more times getting ready for the show, and then do 4 podcasts a week on it, yeah, I've got a right to be pissed off if they suck. If they can't cover anybody,
our time.
Yeah. If they can't cover anybody, if they can't tackle anybody, if they can't put points on the board, if the coaches can't get out of their own way, yeah, I'm going to be pissed. And you know what's going to piss me off even more? Somebody telling me not to be pissed.
Think about anything you're invested in life in general, man. You're going to react. It's just how it is. It's human nature. God, these are the worst people, I swear. Please don't ever message me.
or please do.
Yeah.
Let us know if you're going to, so we can be there for it.
Exactly.
And,
yeah. We're not going to
place
anybody
get the
here.
GoFundMe together. I'm going to need bail.
Well, that does it for us today. I appreciate everybody watching. We're not going to police anybody on this show or any other podcast on this network for sure. Thanks for watching. I'm at Garrett, Jamie at Lightning_round. Don't forget Craig, top_flight, FLYT with the number 3. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Jamie.
Salute.